Hey guys, it's Sam at Allotted Path Ranch. Hopefully the wind's not too bad out here today, but I'll take the breeze because it's a warm day. Today I want to talk to you about well water and how to get that water out of the ground in different situations, mainly with solar, because I don't think anything in this world is a constant now and can be depended on. So even though you may not need solar at the moment, you may in the future, and water's an important thing we can't live without. So I'll show you what we got going on with our setup first. Ours is a unique. Let me flip this around. So what we have here, we have a low producing well, so we have a above ground storage tank up on the highest point of our property. It's wrapped in roofing metal to help keep it insulated, but main thing just to keep the sun off of it and make degrading the tanks. What we have right here, you see some extra plumbing, but that's for our chlorine injection that we decided to add as a extra insurance against bacteria, since we're using storage tanks. And right now our reservoir broke for the chlorine, so we had to take the pump, and we just took the pump out of the system right now while we're waiting on a new reservoir to come in. What we have is a deep well. It's a 120 volt deep well, and we have a normal system like a house. We have a smaller pressure tank than most, but we're only filling a tank, we're not pressurizing a system, so we have that to keep the pump from cycling so much. Regular pressure switch that anybody would have on their system. We don't use a run dry switch that has a little throw handle on the side, because that would just reset and we'd have to come out here manually every day, several times a day. So what we do have to control it is this little fuse pump saver, which is in just a regular air conditioner pull out disconnect box. Drill the little hole in the cover. This is the pump saver that goes inside a control box, where our 120 volt half horse well pump doesn't need a control box, so therefore they don't even make one for our particular model to begin with, so therefore we don't have a box to put it in. The cheapest way to go is just to buy this thing and wire it and insulate it and put it in there, and we can still drill the hole so we can see the status light. Flashing means it's on the timer. The well ran dry, and now it's adjustable. We got it set for, I think, 225 minutes, something like that, before it comes back on and gives the well time to recuperate. And that's adjustable down to like 5 minutes, I think. Maybe, don't hold me to that. And that gives us a disconnect means too. And what it does, it just goes around and pumps up into our storage system. And where we're at here in the south, we don't have, freezing's not a big issue. We have some freezing here in the winter. Well, what we have, these pipes, we just done these. We'll spray paint them black because the sun will shine on them, and it actually helps. If we have any frozen pipes, we don't really have them bust. Every once in a while, like once every year or two, we'll have one bust on a plastic fitting out in the field somewhere. We have an overflow, and just so we know how much water's in our tank, we had this tube right here that shows us it's like a sight glass. It shows us our water level, which you can't see, but it's up there at the top. But it expands when it freezes, so if it does freeze, it doesn't bust. And that's pretty well. You can use PEX, but we use this black pipe that's rated for like 150 psi, and it flexes. As long as you use the good fittings with steel fittings with it, we don't have any problems with it freezing. But as a fail-safe on our tanks, we have a expandable connection that will actually freeze and pop off, which has happened once or twice during the hard and single-digit freezes, which is odd for us. And if we were a little bit more to the north, we would have buried our tanks and got around that. Anyway, that's what we got. And from here, we get powered by either the grid, 120 volt, or we can be powered by our solar. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. So now I'll go somewhere out in the wind and talk to you more. Today I want to talk to you about wells running off of solar power, which I think a lot of people are interested in now, not just because they may need it to run their well because they're off grid somewhere, but because in case the grid goes down, that's a fear of a lot of people. They'll have a way to deal with that. So first of all, I want to put a disclaimer out there. I'm no professional. I don't know everything there is to know about solar, and solar is an ever-changing thing as new technologies come out. But in a former life before I was a missionary, I was a professional electrical contractor. So I didn't specialize in solar, but I do have a fair understanding, and we have used systems from 12-volt systems on our camper, which we learned and upgraded with, to systems we use here at the camp that we're building, running various things, and we've upgraded some of those systems. We've learned from mistakes and lots of research. So I invite you to go out there and research. Just don't go by what I say, but you use some discernment there. So we have different options, okay? I'd say number one, and it's probably my favorite, even though I'm not using it at the time, but we do have a spring that's lower on the property that we need to put water up to our higher storage tank. And we've already got some of the materials for that, and this is something that we're looking towards, and this is a panel direct solar pumping system. So this is option number one. The pro for it, there's no batteries to buy. And in an off-grid system, the batteries are usually the biggest expense, just because it's the way it is. You know that because of the way it is. And there's probably more pros. I'm not going to list them all, but some of them are just common knowledge. But cons, you got to have more panels per se. You can have the same amount of panels. I mean, again, it's according on what you build, where you at. Every situation is different. How much sunlight you get, how many hours of the day you get, how much cloudy. Do you want to have to run a generator on some days? It's all up to you. Another con is it's only daylight pumping. If you're running a normal pressurized system like for a house, that you want it normal like an on-grid system, then this system's not going to be good for you, because you're not going to be able to take a shower at night. You're not going to have tap water available at night. But if you're pumping up to a storage tank where you got elevation to give you pressure, this is the system for you, which would be our way. Or if you're pumping up to a storage tank where you're using a smaller booster pump that's running off of another solar array or something, a battery bank, then you have that option as well. And these are all my humble opinions on where to go with this, but I think the best pump for that is you want to go small, because the smaller the better, and you're going to get more than you ever bargained for out of even the smallest one of these pumps. But like a Grundfos 3 SQF2, I think it's a dual voltage pump. Anyway, look up their pumps. Dual voltage pump. At AC, it runs anywhere from 90 to 240 volt AC, so you can run it off of whatever you already got run if that's the situation, because some people have 120 volt wells instead of 220. And then it's direct start. There's no, it's a soft start. You don't need a control box or anything. You don't need, no relays, nothing. You just need a breaker to attach to your leads to. And then you have, on the DC side, it's dual voltage. On the DC side, it runs anywhere between 30 to 300 volt DC. And from what I've heard, 120 volt DC is kind of the sweet spot. It's probably one of the more efficient. So to aim for, but 30 volts is all you need. So if you got a 48 volt system, you're in there kicking. And then panels. Now, this is me. The more panels, the better. You're not going to have too many panels. I just don't see it happening. As long as your voltage is not over 300 volts, I'd go with 800 watts minimum. Higher for better results, because you're gonna get shady parts of the day. You're gonna get days where the sun ain't kicking like it should. Then you got the winter. The winter, the sun's low. You're not gonna get good sunlight. So and remember, this only pumps when it's producing 30 volts or more. So. And then at the proper wattage, which is you're probably going to look at like a 8 to 10 amp pump is probably what it's going to pull. And a soft start, so you don't have that big peak at the beginning. So then you got what I'm calling solar option number 2. It's basically the same system here, except you're throwing an inverter and a charge controller into the system, and a charger too. Depends on you, if you want your batteries charged up on a cloudy day. So the pros for this, you get night and day usage. You can set the system up where it runs your house normal. If the power went out, your water, and you're on a rural well, your water system does not change whatsoever. You still have showers like normal. You might not have power in your house, but you'll have that. And some of these systems, you can size them big enough where you can still get a little bit of power out of them for everything else. Run a little refrigerator or something, especially on those sunny days. The pro for this, you get the night and day usage. Cons, you get batteries are needed. And that's where them big dollar signs come into play, because especially when you get into decent batteries, the better the technology, the more they cost. And then you got to have more of them as well. The longer you want this to run flawlessly without cranking a generator to charge them. But you can go that route and get by most days. As long as you got a small inverter style generator, you can just off a little bit of gas, you can run it for an hour, charge up your system. I mean, you can, a little 2,000 watt generator, you can probably run 12 hours off a gallon of gas. So you get 12 days worth of charging right there, you know, give or take. I mean, it's even as high as gas is. That's what we've done with systems in the past like with our RV, for instance. We did that because instead of having the weight of all these extra batteries, you know, to make up for those cloudy days, and without going to lithium, but that's another story. So overall, you get you can use less panels depending on your usage, because you just want to charge them batteries, and a pump, something's just going to come on for a few minutes and go off. But then again, the more panels, the better. You're not going to go wrong with that, because then you can get more use out of you can run a fridge or something else off of it. If you come up with extra storage, you've done a great job. So don't worry about getting too much storage in there with the batteries. And then you want a good inverter, and I'd say it'd probably to be safe, you want a 3,000 watt inverter to run it. This is all based on a 1/2 horsepower pump in your well. And you want a good charger to charge that system up, and they make a combination that does all this. You Google, there's so many names out there. I'm not going to give you one, because 6 months from now when somebody's watching this video, they're going to dog me about how out of date it is and all that, because I already get that from other videos. Well, look it up and check the reviews and check it out for yourself. So this system's not a bad way to go either, but I like the direct panel drive one to a storage tank, just because of the fact the batteries are going to wear out. Their life doesn't last like they say they will. And then if it's a lead acid battery and you got to maintain them, it's just added time to your week, and it's just something else that's going to fail. Where the panels are pretty reliable, the batteries are the weak link for reliability. They're only going to charge up so many times, and they weaken as they go. It's a curve that's falling off. So it's not like they're 5 years and they're working at 100% and then die one day. It's not the way it goes. So I'd go with 800 watts of minimum on solar panel, and say 3,000 on the inverter, and I'd go no less than 600 amp hour of batteries to start with. I mean, that's just, bigger, better, same thing with panels and batteries. Now, solar option number 3. And again, all this is my opinions. I'm a professional homeowner, not a professional solar installer. Wait a minute, I don't even own a home. I live in a camper. So take this with a grain of salt. Then option number 3. This option, you get the day and night. The pro is you get the day and night usage. The pro is cheaper. Con, batteries are needed, and they're going to expire on you. Another con is not long-term survivability is what I look like. If the grid's down and it's down for a while, or just availability of batteries and parts, and they cost so much nobody can afford them, whatever it may be, the way the world's headed, if you got to have batteries, you know, that's a weak link. And but another pro, you can run this off a 2,000 watt generator. And another con would be you're limited to 125 foot pump depth, which most places I've lived are being 125 foot's not that far. You can have a 300 foot well and have static water at 60 foot. I mean, I've had that, came into that, my pump only be set at 90 feet, so 125 feet of lift is what you get. It doesn't mean it doesn't have to do with your depth. It's that static water where it pumps down to. That's as long as you're below that, you're good. So this is kind of what we're using or what we're headed towards with our actual well here. But the biggest thing, the reason we're going with it is because of the night and day usage. But we're using the storage tank, but this is my option I've kind of built for other people. So, and this is on the economical option. So the pump is a 120 volt pump. And some people say, I already got a well. Well, that's fine, but this comes out cheaper than if you're building your own system than building it around your pump you got. And some wells are big enough, like here we have an 8-inch well, we can put 2 pumps in there side by side. So that may be an option too, where you have a backup and then you have your grid system. So going into the same pressure tank. But anyway, there's so many variables with all, this is a big conversation, but this is a 120 volt pump, half horsepower. I based it off the one that we use. It came from Lowe's. It's a Zoeller. It's a submersible pump for a 4-inch well. I think it actually would fit in a smaller, maybe a 3-inch, but I've never seen a 3-inch well. There's no control box needed because it's a 1/2-inch pump, so there's less cost there, less wire. You know, just if you put a pump saver on it like we did, it's cheaper. It's a cheaper route. And then inverter, a 3,000 watt inverter is more than good enough. And I recommend a pure sine wave inverter because they're just better inverters all around. And I don't know how the pump would probably run off of it because it's not a total electronic, but there is a little board in that pump, and you don't know what else you're gonna end up wanting to plug into this. Charge your phone, whatever, your laptop. So they're better. I don't even buy a regular generator. I buy inverter generators, no matter if I'm using it to run my skill saw. They're better. They're just all around better. Technology is better, and they're getting more and more affordable. So go with a good inverter. Charge controller. I recommend a 48 volt system, MPPT. You know, because unless it's upgraded since I've bought one, that's about the best out there. And to run this pump, I'd get a 60 amp. So a 48 volt MPPT 60 amp charge controller. And Midnight Solar, Renogy, and people gonna say this one ain't no good, that one ain't no good. Just do your research, and it varies from model to model. Some of them Midnight Solar makes a reliable one in this size and not in that size, and just do your research on that, because it's going to change. Like I say, by the time this video comes out, and 6 months from now, it's going to be totally different or obsolete and can't even buy them new. So, and you got to make sure your charge controller is compatible with your batteries, because not all charge controllers are good for lithium ion batteries or any kind of lithium iron or whatever. You want to make sure it's compatible with the batteries you decide to go with. You want a charger for extended cloudy days. You want to be able to crank up and plug in a generator to charge your batteries, because unless you want to just have you shut your system down and crank your generator, run your well. Because again, it'll run off a very small, very economical to run, but then gas might be in a short supply. But I think the generator and the charger system is the way to go. If you can't get gas one day, then fine, you just got it sitting there and can't use it. But until then, you're gonna enjoy it, trust me, because there's extended cloudy days in the winter when you don't have even on your sunny days, you don't get a lot in, and even with a well, you might run down. And again, it's water, you can't live without it. Panels, no less than 800 watts, for sure. And to get the highest voltage that's compatible with your charge controller. I say a 48 volt system. When I say 48 volt system, I'm saying for the pump. You know, for the inverter, get you an inverter that's rated for 48 volts input, and get you a 48 volt battery bank. That's what I'm saying with the 48 volt. But get the highest that's able to come into that MPPT controller, which is going And at MPPT, you got to watch it, these cut rate controllers on the market, because they're old technology, and they're not going to max out. They're not going to take that sun that panel's producing, that total wattage that it produces. And by the way, you're not going to get 100 watts out of a 100 watt panel. You're not going to get anywhere near that. So don't go in it thinking that. So you want to make the best use you can out of what comes out of that panel, and the MPPT is the way to go, because it's going to maximize it. That's what first M stands for to begin with. So, and then you want to, with batteries, you can do whatever you want here. The cheapest way to go, but it works, is lead acid batteries. People use golf cart batteries right on down to marine trolling batteries, whatever. They're solar lead acid batteries too. The pro is they're cheap. The con is they're junk. They're maintenance. You have to check your levels in them and add to them, and it's just a constant. And if one battery goes, I've never even used any. It's as simple as that. Even on my fence controllers that are solar powered here at the ranch, I don't use them because they're too much trouble. I've had the lowest grade I've had has been a gel battery, and honestly, I bought the gel batteries thinking they were AGMs, and it was a mistake. And I said, well, the gels are still good, and I should have sent them back, because that was a waste of money to me too, because they're right there at the AGM level as far as price where they were when I bought them. So AGM, they're still economical. They cost a little more, but they're still economical compared to lithium. And AGM varies too. Look up product reviews, because do not buy Renogy AGMs. I did that, and they did not last. 5-year batteries didn't last a year. But it varies. Like I say, just do your research. But the AGMs, the last ones we've got were VMAX, I think, and they were not the most expensive AGMs, but you know what? Them things, we've gotten good life out of them. And we've had BBs, which are expensive, and they hold up. They just don't hold up to their rating per se. They'll last for years and years and years past their viability, what they're rated for, and time-wise. But as far as their rating of a capacity, I think they're underrated. They're overrated to begin with, which all batteries are. You never going, and that's from me sitting there monitoring them and knowing. And that's the next thing. You want a good battery monitor. And if it's not built into something else in your system, you want to get you a Victron Energy battery monitor. Make sure you get one that goes with your system, what you got. But we've had them from the beginning they work great. Because you want to be able to watch more than voltage. People say, oh, I get you a voltmeter. That don't mean nothing. It's hard. Unless you're going to let your battery sit and rest for several hours, voltage ain't going to tell you a whole lot. And then, so that's the economical. And that's pretty much what we're doing, except we're not having to use the batteries, because we're pumping into a storage tank. So then you got option number 4. Option number 4 is to buy. You already have your well, you have everything there, and you're not handy enough, or you don't want to hire an electrician, or the electrician you have around, because there's not a lot of solar guys around in a lot of places. You don't want to get that involved. You want to be able to do it yourself, but you want a package deal. So this is a good option for people. It's going to cost you a little more, but honestly, you're gonna get a good product from most companies. And again, do your research on that. Like RPS, I've seen good from them. I've never used a package deal, but I've seen good from them. I like their product. I've looked at them and checked into them, watched their videos, and honestly, if I had the money to do it, I would get one, just because the ease of putting the thing together. And so this is a kit. The Pro is everything you need pretty well comes in. According on who you get the kit from, it may be everything. You might have to have a ground rod, you might have to have a piece of pipe and concrete to put your solar panels on, or it may even come in the kit. It's the more money you spend, or you might have to buy your own batteries, whatever. But a lot of them have everything in there where you got to put it together, but other than that, it's a turnkey operation. You know what I'm saying? And it powers what's already there. And biggest thing is size it to your pump horsepower. Make sure you get the right kit, because it ain't gonna matter if the voltage is right or none of that if it ain't got the power to run that thing. And I mean, this is user friendly, and they're pretty well. It's automatic. A lot of these kits, it runs off your power coming in from the grid, and when that goes away, then it automatically turns over, or it can sense if you crank your generator and running off that. But when that grid power is gone, it'll sense and go over to your batteries that are sitting there in charge just waiting. So it's kind of more of an automatic thing. And then you don't have to have that. Most of them, they'll work even without grid being tied to the grid whatsoever. They don't need to sense that power because they're gonna run, because you got the battery. You have that option. You can run off the batteries all the time. But you can have, they'll automatically set on and crank a generator and charge the batteries. All right, so with all these systems, here's some things that I recommend you watch out for. Charge controllers, number one. Make sure they're compatible with your batteries. When you're talking about lithium, make sure you get MPPMs charge controllers. That's maximum power point management, because it does exactly what the name says. It's going to maximize the power that comes in there, and use it efficiently. It's most efficient thing you can get that I know of. And then you got pumps. You got different pumps. You're gonna look at some, even these kits in option number 4. These kits, the pumps are different. Make sure you know what you're buying. You got pumps that they're just lift pumps. They'll lift the water out the well into a storage tank, which is all fine and dandy. And if you don't have elevation like most of the people in the world don't, then you still got to have a booster pump. Something's got to run that booster pump to pressurize your house or your garden irrigation system, whatever it is. So you got lift pumps and you got pressure head pumps. So a regular house has a pressure pump that's capable of building up pressure and not blowing the seals out. Some can't even maintain, to cut your lift pump might not can maintain the lift to get up to that pressure. Some can do it, but it's gonna blow their gaskets out when they get there. So you make sure you get the right pump. And remember, don't get a 2 horsepower pump unless you have to have it for your well. If a 1/2 horsepower will do it, your whole system size around your horsepower, around the wattage, the amps that it uses. So you wanna keep that in mind. And some inverters. I go with pure sine wave. And if you want a little generator to back things up, get an inverter style generator, and if you're just running a battery charger to charge up the system, a charger to go in the system, that alone, get the smallest one possible. I mean, you can get an 800 watt or something, probably inverter, little suitcase generator to run a battery charger, because you're not running the pump straight off the generator. Now, if you want one that's going to run your pump, 1/2 horsepower or 2,000 watt works, because we've run ours off of it for a year, basically, and fill our pressure tank. Then some cheap insurance on your well. And this goes for anybody anywhere that's got a normal grid system. They make pressure switches with a low pressure cutoff when it gets to like 10 pounds below your cut on point, I think, or 10 pounds total. Anyway, when it gets too low, it's about to burn your pump up, and it only takes so many seconds to burn up a pump sitting there cavitating with air in it, because the water in your well cools your deep well pumps. So get you one with it. It's got a little handle on the side that you have to manually reset. That's what you want. That's your low pressure cutoff. It's good insurance. We don't have one on ours because it would cut our system off every day, but there's one going on our spring because it's a total different kind of system. But if you got a normal system that you have, put that on there. I mean, I don't even know that they cost any more than a regular pressure switch. If they do, it's negligible, and it'll save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars when something goes wrong. And remember, the kits need to be sized for the size of your pump, and batteries, they don't last as stated, and they don't have the capacity as stated. It's just like the panels, a 100 watt panel. Unless you're on the equator, pointing straight at the equator, I don't even know if you get 100 watts in. It's got to be perfect conditions, temperature and everything comes into play. Same thing with batteries. I really don't think they've any kind of laboratory condition that they can get the capacity that they claim, unless it's a really expensive battery. And if you got the money, go with lithium. They're the way to go. You'll get more discharge out of them, more life out of them, and just a better product altogether. And don't be scared of them unless you're buying some old stock batteries from somewhere. The technology is there now that they're safe and they're not catching a fire like they were. They got built-in safeguards for that. And the old saying that You get what you pay for, but that's not so. You only get a fraction of what you pay for. So the more money you throw at it, the better off you're gonna be. Thank you, and God bless. And I hope you see the importance of water in your life, especially when it comes to the living water. If you don't know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, I recommend that you, next time he's tugging on that old heart of yours, that you give in and turn your life over to him, because it'll be the best thing you ever done. You won't ever regret it. I love you. See you later.